So welcome everybody. And it's the middle of the day. So I want to acknowledge that this is not easy. And sometimes just showing up is enough. So let's take a deep breath together into the nose. We can hold it and let it out. Sometimes showing up enough is enough. So today will be a safe space to support you, no judgment, to share some tools, tips, and share how we feel and the challenges that we are facing. And for that, I want to introduce Hillary, who is bringing us all these different ways to connect with parents so we can learn together and supporting you.
I was able to make it today. Really excited. Just for those who haven't met me yet, I'm the Community Outreach and Partnerships Coordinator at Meaningful Beginnings, and I'm really here to help improve the family experience and make sure that our parents and children are getting all the support and care they need, which is what really inspired this first talk for our Parents Talk, something we hope to really host regularly and just share insightful lessons and experiences for anyone who might want that. So our first session, we're going to be focused with dealing with challenging behaviors for kids. I know it's something we always encounter, and today we're just going to share tips, stories, and kind of see how we can build a community to support one another. We'll start with Louisa and Carmen. They're going to just share some insights from their journey as educators, facilitators, and then really kind of want to hold a space later for parents to share their own individual experiences and any questions you guys might have. So from there, I'll hand it over to Louisa and Carmen.
To have everybody here today. It's really exciting to see a good turnout. We're always happy to support our families. So sort of what I'm going to be going over is just sort of some ways to frame your mind work when it comes to dealing with kids when they're having those rough moments that they are going to go through, and then also just some tips and tricks sort of to help out as well. So I mean, we've all dealt with children with varying behaviors, whether they're little babies or older into our preschool age. But something to always remember is start with understanding. So understanding that every behavior that's coming out is a communication. So the child is always trying to tell us something, even if it's hard to sometimes understand. So just keeping that mindfulness, and also always looking for, underlying needs when it comes to that. Why is my child behaving this? Are they, hangry? Are they tired? Are they just overstimulated? Do they just need a touch point, a moment of connection to sort of help, recenter themselves, is always good. And just remembering that children aren't giving us a hard time, they're having a hard time. Because the emotions that we feel every day, they're feeling the same thing. It's just a very little body. So just imagine, the same amount of emotion, but a tiny body in it. When you're actually conversing with your child, it's always important to stay neutral, keep a calm tone of voice when you're having this, just because that's what's going to connect the most with your child. I always say that an escalated adult cannot de-escalate a child. So it's sometimes that can be really challenging, especially when you're out trying to maintain that calm voice. I always say if you're able to trade off every once in a while with your partner and just be I just need to walk for a second, and even vocalizing that to your child, oh, I'm feeling frustrated, I need to take a step back. That's modeling that self-regulation. That's super helpful for kids to hear from you as well. And then when you're talking to them, make sure that you're validating what they're feeling, and help give them a name to the emotion that they're feeling. So I will be oh, it seems like I can see that you're really upset. It's okay to be upset about this. We understand. How can I help you to make sure that we're calming our bodies? Or if they're doing a behavior that isn't one you want to see, you can say it's okay to be mad. It's not okay to hit, though. So reminding them and connecting them that the feeling is always okay to feel. We never want them to feel invalid in what they're feeling. And just remember to be consistent in your expectations and setting clear expectations and setting clear boundaries for them. I know a lot of times it can feel if you're too strict or things, or too much structure, it can be bad, and they're not going to have as much fun, and it's not going to be as great as a relationship. But kids really do thrive with those boundaries and with those structures. As like teachers, Carmen and I can both say, like, we set very clear expectations in the classrooms when we're in there, and it's not like the kids like love us any less because of it. In fact, they seem to bond with us even more because they feel like self-assured and knowing like, oh, I know exactly what is okay and what isn't okay when I'm like with this person. Like, I know what I need to be doing, and I'm able to have a little bit more freedom because of it. They just have that added security. And just one more thing to really keep in mind when it comes to like the parent mindset of it all is reminding yourself when you can that sometimes, how would I say? Sometimes, like, I feel like as adults, we expect when we're having a rough moment with like each other or with another adult, we expect them to come to us and be like, you know what, I was wrong in what I was doing. Like, you were right. Like, I apologize. With kids, you sort of have to get rid of that expectation that they're going to come back and be understanding necessarily right away, or understanding enough to be saying like, I was wrong, like, thank you for, you know, setting me straight. We just sort of have to like internally have that validation of like, oh, I know this is really hard, but it's okay, because in the end, I know this is the right thing to do. And then next, something to really make sure that you're doing when talking to your child, not only staying clear and calm, is make sure that you're always like, this is sort of like structuring to help make sure your child feels a little bit more safe with you, but catch when they're doing the right thing as well. Like, don't always bring up when they're not doing the right thing. So praise, you know, when you see like, oh, I'm so glad that you went and like used your words. Just so that they're feeling that validation as well. And you want to praise the effort, not just like the outcome, because sometimes I've seen it in like the toddler room where like one kid will like say like, no, it's mine. And then in the end they'll hit because like the other friend isn't listening. So you still want to praise them for being like, you used your words. Like, thank you for using your words. I'm sorry your friend like didn't hear you, but you did a like good job saying that. And make sure you're specific with those praises, because that's really what kids need to hear, and that's how they understand like the actions that they did. And then whenever you're, you know, doing boundaries and doing things, make sure you're offering like clear choices when you can for kids. Kids love to make choices and feel like they're, you know, deciding their own thing on what's going to happen. And so that's really important for them if you can. I like to call it like choice, no choice with kids. So I'll be like, hey, like, do you want to be done in 2 minutes or 5 minutes? And in the end, you're getting the outcome you want because you were like, we're moving on to the next thing that needs to happen. But they get to also feel like they're like, 5 minutes, and you're like, okay, like you got to pick too. So it's more of a partnership that you want to try to facilitate as much as possible. And then also just make sure that you're stating expectations before like certain things, especially if you know it's going to be a triggering thing. So like if you're going out in the parking lot, before you even get to the parking lot, be like, oh, we're going into the parking lot. Like, we have to use our walking feet and hold my hand, just so that they have that expectation reminded. Kids just need reminders constantly on those expectations. It's super important. And then when you are talking to them, avoid, you know, long lectures, be clear and direct with them. Make sure it's logical and related consequences if they don't listen. For example, if I told my like kiddo, like, oh, we're going to walk in the parking lot and you're going to hold my hand, and then they fight it, I'm like, if we're not going to be able to be safe, then I'm going to have to carry you. And so make sure it's very directed on how things are going. You don't want to just make them feel like they're getting punished. And if possible, always avoid the phrase like no. If you can like rephrase it differently, just because no can be very triggering for kids. So by saying instead like, oh, like they're like, oh, I want to go do this. And it's like, oh, I understand you want to go do that. Right now we need to finish this. Just so they're not hearing the direct no. The direct no tends to be like they're already spiraling and everything you said after no is not being heard. So that's just something to try and like rephrase your wording. I know it's not always easy. Even as teachers, we struggle sometimes with remembering not to use like certain phrases, but it can be super helpful for kids. And they sort of are more open to hearing what you have to say. And then just one final like really big thing is to also connect with us, your teachers, teaching staff, your admin. Like we're here to support you guys, and also by having the same language, the same like techniques that we're using, it's going to be the most beneficial for your child because it's the same consistency. So the more you tell us, the more you like communicate with us, like, oh, we've been having like a problem with drop off lately. Like it seems like every time like we drop off, it's always this big emotion and we're having a hard time like connecting with them and calming them down. Like, do you have anything? Like, what can we do to partner? Because honestly, Carmen and I will both say we want to partner with you guys so much. Like that's what makes us happy. That's what we know we can do to sort of help you guys. So that's really important to us as well. I'll let Carmen add anything if she has anything.
Yeah, I think everything that Louisa said is I totally align with. I think with children being as simple and clear as much as we can, it's always like the easiest for them to understand, but also knowing that by you guys just being present and acknowledging that there is something to be working, like that you have to work with, is already you're doing the right thing by your child, and that we're fully supportive of how you would like for us to assist. And so any way that we can possibly help, we'd be more than happy to. So
Wonderful. Thank you. This idea of boundaries that I found quite counterintuitive before I became a parent. Like, oh, boundaries, that's no fun. But realizing how much it is, and when I can help, it doesn't always work, to make it work with my child, it helps. So thank you for the reminder. And I think one big takeaway for me here is that there is help. And so Louisa, Carmen, and the others, they're there. You can, if in doubt, if you're struggling, just ask. Now, speaking of struggles, I'd be curious to hear what are some of the biggest challenges right now. So put that in the chat, and we're going to see maybe we can touch on that a little bit, and maybe also learn together by having some of the other parents share what has worked. So take a moment in the chat window, put in maybe what's one big challenge, or two, maybe there are several. From my side personally is my daughter has very strong character, perhaps strong opinions on things. So a little bit of pushing back there has been a challenge. And there's always of course, the maybe ongoing challenge about around sleep. So put in the chat, so we can see what are things that come up. And then while you do that, I'm also curious, which times of the day feel the hardest? Is it the morning, bedtime, transition, if the siblings, or other things around conflict? Here for us, bedtime. We never managed to get the Augustina to sleep at a good time. So it's always been, she's very clever at kind of finding ways to stay up later. Then on the weekend, she catches up a little bit, but it's not ideal. So let's see what we have. Sure, you have some challenges. So let's hear them. So if you prefer to unmute yourself and share, that's also perfectly fine. Or put it in the chat. So we'll give you 20 seconds. Put something there. Otherwise, I'm going to share my list. Okay, well, seems like either you're typing slow, or we can start with my challenges, some of ours. I know, Jessica, that's might betrays a couple of challenges. Oh, you shared. Wonderful. For our older son, we struggle with trying new foods and getting out the door in a time in the morning. For now, our daycare is very close, 5 minutes, but it's going to change the next year. One day, I forgot to put the shoes on Agustina. I was able to go back, but once it's going to be longer, it's going to be a challenge. Ruan, how about you? What are some challenges from your side? Say, Louisa. At what age do we start thinking about behavior challenges? So they're just 9 months. So pediatricians just said it's too soon to do any behavioral correction. That's a very good question. We shared similar questions with. We each have thoughts, questions ourselves around that age. Louisa, Carmen, would you have some thoughts on that? What is a good age to begin?
I think sometimes like challenging behaviors, it almost seems like it's like something that's always happening. But even for like a 9-month-old, like in the classroom, like they're already going to start being like, oh, I want to share the same toy. And so there's already going to be, you know, like beefing happening. So things you can do is setting those boundaries even now, because those boundaries can be set now. It's just reframing the phrasing to make it fit the age bracket. So I know in the classroom, a lot of times what we'll do is instead of being like, oh, like we'll like say like, oh, it's a busy toy. Like, let's find another toy. Because even that like short phrases, they understand at 9 months. They're like, okay, you're saying it's a busy toy. You're stopping me from grabbing it. Let's find another toy. You're redirecting me to do something else. So even though it seems like, oh, 9 months, it's too soon to be like concerned, you can start already laying framework that'll help you avoid these like other emotions that can come out later. Would be what I would say is super useful at 9 months.
And even as like an infant, sometimes like they just don't know their strength just yet. And so they could be playfully playing with you and it may not hurt you as the adult, but that act of like, oh, mom laughed really hard when I pulled her hair just because we were playing. Something like that can kind of alter what their mindset of what that means. And they think, oh, if I pull hair, you know, it's going to make mom laugh because I'm playing with her. But setting those clear boundaries of like, hey, you know, that hurts mom. Ouch, like we do gentle hands and things like that. It's like almost like that's the initial phase of like where that can turn into a challenging behavior in the future, because they can just mistake it of like a playful interaction. So
I always like to say, even through like I would say our whole age bracket, like through preschool, the nuances of knowing like when it's okay and when it's not okay is not easy for kids to understand right now. It's either all or nothing. Yeah. So like it's also watching, like I've had families before where like the kids watched a lot of football, and so the kid would come and like tackle other students because like he's watching it on TV, it looks like fun, they're not getting hurt, and it's like, okay, like that's okay there. That's harder to explain as they get older. So it's good to be aware of what's going on around them, what they're seeing, and yeah, setting those boundaries of like gentle hands, and then like having them show you, because the babies can show you like gentle hands pretty young still. They understand. They're really smart kids.
Yeah. And then as for Oslo and Rome, I think something that might help with like 2-year-olds in preschool is like, I've had some families that do a visual schedule almost of saying like, hey, Rome, it's breakfast right now, and showing him like a little picture and saying it's breakfast time. After, we're going to get our shoes and jacket, and then we have to head out the door. And as he's getting a little bit older and like learning a little bit more about time, you can start to implement that. And even for Oslo, like, okay, Oslo, we just took a bath. What's next on our schedule? We're going to read a book and we're going to get ready for bed. And just kind of like visually showing him what to expect can also be helpful for both age groups. Of course, for Romy, we kind of tailor it a little bit more detailed with timings and maybe more specifics to him. But for Oslo, keeping it general, like this is first, and then we're going to do this. And then it is time to lay in bed and relax our bodies. And
then for Rome, I would say like when doing that, because Rome is super like smart, even having him read like an analog clock, because they would do that all the time here. And they'd be like, 3, like it's time for snack, and like they would know and they would tell us, and it's sort of like they get excited because they're telling us what to do, even though it's like we were going to be telling them what to do. So having him be like a contributor to it. And yeah, with Oslo, sometimes I like with kids, it's again that choice, no choice. So I'd be like, okay, you get 2 books or 3 books, like you pick, or like you get like 2 songs and 1 book, like so that they sort of feel like they're in control a little bit and they're directing it. I've even had it be like, okay, you can get like 1 long song or like 2 short, and they're like, oh, I want the 1 long song. And you're like, okay. And then we rest our bodies. And in doing that, like giving them that choice, it's like, if I give you this choice, like I don't want no muss, no fuss about it. And then they're very much like, okay, like this was agreed upon. Otherwise, we're not going to do this again. That's also good. Like if you're ever going to do something special, like say today you're going to get them like a cookie when you go to Starbucks or something, making sure that you're very clear, like this is a special day. We're not going to do this all the time. just so that they know. Otherwise, they get that thing where it's like, well, last time you got me a cookie. And so just keeping those things in mind whenever you bend a little, that sometimes you got to be very clear about the bending.
No, these are amazing tips. Augustina, I think, has a way of taking those rules and shifting them. Even the team seems to forget that we said it was special. And speaking of saying no, you said how parents, we should avoid saying no. But what if the child learns that? Just as Jessica said that there's some challenges leaving the house and when it comes to sleep. How would you approach that?
Like when the child is saying no?
Yeah, in the context of, in this case with Jessica, it was about, maybe a sleep time or leaving house, where she is, what a child, sorry, I don't know the gender here, but pushing back. Was it? Yeah.
I don't surrounding the focus on the no is going to be beneficial, because then they realize, oh, mom heard me say no and she's validating it. I think it's just like shifting the focus of like, I know we're going to bed right now. We are going to read the book, and then we do have to rest our bodies. I think like shifting that focus away from the no might be more helpful with like versus like addressing the no. Louisa, do you want to add to that?
I also think making your kid be part of their plan in the morning, like they get to pick, like, oh, so what do you want to do first? Are you going to play for a little bit and then have breakfast? Are you going to do breakfast and then you'll play for a little bit, just so that they are in it? And then also keep in mind, there are going to be days, just like we have as adults, where it's just going to be a no day and there's not much you can do. And it's just reminding yourself like, yep, like, and validating that feeling again, like, I can see today's just one of those rough days. Like maybe we could, like, I can just validate that feeling and be like, okay, like this is what we need to do today. Maybe we can think of something to do that makes it fun, like one activity that we can do. And I like to do like not rewards in terms of like things, but like an activity like, oh, maybe if we take a deep breath and we end up going out the door, we can maybe do something fun. Like we could go to the park or we could go to a playground. Like, what do you think would be a good way to help us sort of feel excited for the day? And that can sort of help them reframe their mind, because they are getting to, again, make a choice, and also for having the ability to leave. And with Rome specifically, like you can even push it back to being like, maybe on the weekend we'll get a special thing. Because sometimes it's hard to do that with 2 kids and like a busy day as well.
Oh, no, wonderful. And I was looking at Hannah's question. I think Hannah's child and my child, they're twinsies from different parents. She was saying that how when you're big tantrum of emotions and not getting what they want, she's trying to explain, trying to acknowledge, but it doesn't work. They're still pushing back. And so she was asking, what can help to regulate? So the usual stuff to help regulate emotions is not working. Redirection, other options, offering comfort, removing from the situation usually don't calm him. How to balance letting them cry versus working to help regulate the emotions?
For me, and like my experience with this is, I would say similar, like sort of like a thing. Imagine when you're really upset and then somebody's like trying to give you advice, or like you're venting to somebody and you're like, I don't want advice right now. I just need to vent. I just need to let this energy out. And so a lot of times, like if they're super upset, and I've done this where I will like be in the room, I'll start playing or doing something engaging to sort of like let them sort of have their moment. I'm like, and I even tell them like, I see you're having a moment. I'm going to give you some space so you can feel your things. And then I just step back and I will play with a toy, or I'll do something else, and I'll let them just feel free to yell if they need to yell, if they need to scream, like just let them feel it. Check in with them, like don't like leave them, but check in with them. And during like a lull, it's like, are we okay? Are we ready? And if they like yell again, it's like, okay, I see we're not ready just yet. And then keep like playing or doing something else, something that you think will like engage them, and let them come to you. And that's sort of how you know when they're ready and open to be more receptive. Even if it's like a super difficult one, I will let them like sort of won't bring it up. I'll sort of circle back once they're in a calmer headspace, or if I get them to smile or laugh a couple times, then I'll be like, I saw that we were really upset, even if they're really little. I saw that we were really upset with that. Like, I'm sorry, I don't like seeing when you're upset. But like the reason that I like did this and like explain it out, definitely always like you never want to just say no because I told you so. I think a lot of us remember hearing that as like kids. You want to give them a logical reason behind it. And just like finish it with that. And then that tends to be a lot easier when they're on that high. Because I always say, like, once you're on that roller coaster, you sort of got to ride it out until they're back to being receptive to an answer.
Yeah. And I think like for George specifically, he recovers pretty quickly, but we do give him that space to be like, I'm gonna let you have your feelings. I'll be over here when you're ready. Like, I'd be more than happy to give you a hug or whatever you need. And so usually after that, George realizes we're not paying attention to the tantrum. And he's like, what do you mean you're walking away? Like, huh? You're supposed to stay here next to me and watch me. And so like we've had a lot of talks with it, or like a lot of the teachers just realized like if we just gave him 3 feet of space and just like slowly walk away, George is like, nobody's watching me anymore. I gotta go get them. And then he'll come up and like offer, he'll say like ball, and then we're like, okay, you're ready to play with us again. And so it kind of like, it's almost like he needs the attention, but also needs the space to kind of realize like, this is not how I need to approach the situation. And he kind of picks it up pretty quickly. So.
That's very nice. That reminds me about my daughter as well. When it comes to eating, she would do a big fuss. They want to eat, but then if we just ate and talked to each other at the table, she would look up like that, like, "Hey, what's happening? Oh, this train is leaving without me." And then she'd start eating. She would forget that she's supposed to not want to eat, and so that sometimes worked out. You also, Luisa, I think you touched on also how what we used to hear from our parents. I think that's an important distinction. Is that sometimes there are ways that our parents did things. Some of them were just not good parenting. We didn't know. Some, it just doesn't work for a specific kid. So how to look at what has been in the past and the things that we've witnessed, and how to know that what is actually healthy and more supportive. I know I've seen around me some situations where there was some old parenting that I can see the results of in the grown person, and very clearly, even as a grown up, that was never okay, because we want to do the best for our kids with what we know, insights about childhood development, and here with the amazing professionals we have. I'd love to hear how would you approach this?
Like if it's not working, like
No, my question is, when we have different approaches that we have maybe witnessed in the past or our parents have done, and when we're not sure, hey, is it the right thing even at all, or the right thing for our kid, how to choose, maybe adjust our approaches so that, because the end result we want is to be the most supportive parent for our kid based on who they uniquely are. And so the different ways of looking at the examples we've seen, the past, what we may have heard, to help us choose what is best for our kids, so we have a happy, thriving, successful child eventually.
I think something to keep in mind as parents, and it's just people that work with kids in general, that I feel a lot of times we're worried about like, oh, what if I make a mistake, or what if I do the wrong thing and this doesn't work, and like this messes up everything for like my child. The point is that you guys are doing the best you can. And sometimes like you're going to make mistakes. Like I feel like all of us can say like, yeah, my mom or my dad, like that was probably not the best way they handled that situation. But that doesn't negate like the love you feel for them. You just understand now as an adult that they're human. As long as you are trying your best, and your best might look different each day, I think that's what's the most important. And then also being, when you know, like I feel like sometimes like, oh, I made a mistake, like I shouldn't have gotten that upset with my child. That's okay. And go back to your child and explain that. Be like, I'm so sorry. Like I was feeling a lot of emotion today too. Like I need to take a deep breath sometimes. Like let them know that they're not alone in this journey. Like I think a lot of times as kids, we think parents are infallible. We think they know everything. They got everything figured out. Of course they do. And to understand that, no, like all of us make mistakes. Like it's okay, is really like humbling for them. And it's also a way for them to bond with you more, because now they're going to be more willing to come up and be like, oh, I made a mistake, or they feel that connection that, oh, it's not like I'm messing everything up. And then another thing is just to you can always message Carmen and I, like, if you're having a hard time or you want to jump on a chat and you're like, this behavior keeps happening, like we're not really sure what to do, we're more than happy to just like take 15-30 minutes out of our day to help you guys. So just using the resources that we can provide you, and then also understanding that mistakes are going to happen. It's doing your best. That's the most important part, and being present with your child.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that the foundational connection is what matters. So they know deep down that you love them. You can correct course and eventually, and it's all going to work out. So I think for parents, especially first-time parents, there was all this fear. So it's good to know. It's good to know also that you are here. The other question I have is, when it comes to sharing with other kids, in my case, for my daughter, sharing was always a challenge. And then sometimes she talked about wanting to have a sibling, but then also not want a sibling. And sometimes it's on their playing ground. So, she also, just like Carrie's child, it's all about what is mine, and taking turns is really difficult. Then she pouts. And sometimes in my case, to the point where the other kids are wondering, like, hey, what's up with you? That is not the normal behavior. So when it comes to sharing, what advice could you give around helping children be better at it?
All right, I'm going to say something that might sound a little like a hot take, but when it comes to sharing, I do think kids should learn about taking turns. I'm not somebody that's really a big proponent of sharing, like the phrasing, especially like the phrasing sharing is caring, I've heard all the time as like a kid, because one, as adults, we don't share. Like, my phone is my phone, my computer's mine, my clothes are mine. Like, we don't share things typically in everyday life. So that's one that I'm hard to show to kids, because the modeling can't really be there as adults. What is there is taking turns. We get in line to take our turn until we're next. We, do different things like that where we're taking turns with different items. If somebody's using them like microwave, I'm going to take my turn. So I like to use the phrase, we're taking turns, because that really does help them understand that their turn is next. I also feel like sometimes when we say like sharing is caring, it sort of invalidates their need to have it. Like, somehow this friend needing it is more important than their need to want it too. And that's something we don't want to do. We want both to feel valid. And that's when, again, you can go in and be like, oh, we're going to have to take turns with this toy. Let's set a timer. So then we can do another, because kids love setting timers. I mean, they love screens in general, but like getting to push that button that says like, all right, should we have a 2-minute or a 3-minute timer? 3 minutes. All right. They push that button. So it's 3 minutes. It's on. They can check it if they want. I have kids like come up to me like, can I check the timer? And I'm like, no, it's still going. Like, we're on it. And they really respond a lot better to the taking turns and setting a timer. I mean, we have a lot of kids even come up to us and like, I need a timer for this now. And we're like, okay, you got it. And sometimes that even gets the other kid to be like, oh, I'm going to share it early then, or I'm going to give them their turn early. It's a much better way I found to do it. And the kids understand it a lot better. They feel more invested and involved in it. They feel like they're validated, that they also have a right over this object. So that's my hot take for the day, is that I think taking turns over sharing makes a lot more sense. And sharing is a harder concept, I think, to explain to a child. Like, why do I have to share with them and give this to them, but they don't have to immediately share it with me back? And then if it's something where it's like, oh, they have like all the Legos, then I'm like, oh, we have a lot of Legos. Like, let's make sure our friends also can play and have fun too. Which Lego should we hand over? Like, let them sort of be in charge of it. Really helps them feel more in control of the situation, which everybody loves to feel in control of situations.
Yeah. Carmen, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, no, I think I fully agree with Louisa. Sharing is a very complicated term to explain to the children, exactly like what Louisa said. I also think with the mine, it could just be like labeling the feeling of like, I do want to play with that, instead of saying like, that's my toy. And that's just kind of like what they hear around. And so they just kind of naturally take that vocabulary, but it could just mean like, I want to play with it. And that's why they say mine, because then they can grab it and be like, then, as adults, you're like, oh, is that your toy from home, or things like that. But it could just be like labeling a big feeling of, I do want to play with that. And that's why I say it's mine, because sometimes kids maybe like, oh, okay, it's yours, you can have it. But yeah.
Okay, no, wonderful, wonderful. And I mean, the sharing sometimes ends up big emotions. And I see Silvana was saying that in her case, her son is 20 months old, and sometimes has these big, intense spurts of energy. And sometimes kids wanna hit and other stuff. So sometimes my daughter has that. In those cases where in her she shared already, well, we're having big feelings, try to relax your body, use gentle hands, but she's not sure if that's working. And also, uh, Kelly was also sharing that sometimes frustration comes from a child and then hitting comes. Even my own daughter hit us a moment of frustration to the point where it wasn't really obviously acceptable. We try to say, hey, we're going to remove ourselves. It's not okay to hit somebody, to hurt somebody else's body, and all those things. So in these moments when things get physical, what advice would you have?
For me, those are two sort of separate thoughts that I'm having. The first one, when it comes to Savannah with Adrian, a lot of times, like once you're having those big feelings, it's not always helpful to then be like, take a deep breath, because they're already again on that like roller coaster. So it's good to practice those things before you have to actually implement them. And I find that kids don't always understand like the concept of like taking a deep breath. It's like a weird sort of like, how do I do that? So a lot of times we'll be like, oh, let's smell the flower, because like they understand that, and then blow out candles. So they're practicing that actual movement. And then you can even do like, let's relax our body and like pretend like we don't like lay on the floor.
Yeah, they love the sleeping bunnies game of like, hey, can you pretend to be a sleeping bunny? And they like immediately lay down and they're like, I'm sleeping.
Yeah. And then sometimes when they're also having that big feeling, like it's great that you are saying like, oh, we're having a big feeling right now. And then don't forget to name the feeling that they're feeling. Like, oh, and even if it's just like what's going on, it's like, oh, I see that we're feeling like overwhelmed, or we're feeling overstimulated, things like that. And then being like, let's find a way for us to calm ourselves down. Should we go for a walk, or should we read a book? Because by giving them those two options, instead of saying like, relax your body, you're giving them a way to relax their body and like a thing to do, instead of just like in their head like, relax my body, like I'm not in the mood to relax my body right now. And then you can circle back, and like when you're bringing them back into play, we'll be like, all right, we're going to go back to play, but that means we need to use our gentle hands. Can you show me gentle hands? And like have them show it to you. And it's like, okay, are we ready to go play and be nice, like be good, and or not be good? Like, are you ready to go play with your friends again? And they're like, yes. And I was like, okay, let's go play then. So like having that type of structure for them is a lot more helpful, like using the gentle hands at the end, and then just helping them at that moment go from being high stress to low stress.
Yeah.
For Carrie and that times, I always say like for kids, it's always hard when there's like a younger and an older. And that's why like when you see them after they're like explaining something and then they hit, I always say that a hitting or any type of behavior like that, it's a breakdown of communication. And communication isn't just saying like, I need space. It's also the other person understanding what you said and taking time to give you space. And so when that happens, you want to validate your child as well. So you want to make them understand, like, even once they hit, like, understand, like, separate, like, be like, oh, like, I saw what happened, like, and I saw that you said you needed space. Like, that was so good that you used your words and let your friend know. Sometimes our little friends don't always understand, but let me help you get space. And then like once they're calmed down, again, circling back and being like, I know you wanted space. What, like, we don't hit our friends, especially because, you know, Casey's very, very verbal. I feel like you could even add in, you know, like, what's something else we could do when a friend doesn't listen? And then they're like, tell the teachers, or like find an adult, things like that. Or like that sort of helps them as well, circling back.
Yeah. I also think with like sometimes when they're so wrapped up in their feelings, it can be hard to like get them to calm down and revert their brain into more of like a logical sense. But something in the moment, like if you see them, they're spiraling, and it's just like one of those things where you're like, I can't have them spiraling in the parking lot. Doing a quick switch of like, do you see a red car somewhere? And like something simple like that can get them to snap out of it for like at least a second to move them safely. Because I know sometimes tantrums can happen anywhere and everywhere. And if it's like really a safety concern of like, I need them to not have the tantrum in the middle of the lot, asking a simple logical question or game can kind of snap them out of it for a second, and so that you can safely move out of the way. Because I know sometimes with you're saying, Silvana saying like uncontrollable energy, that can kind of spiral, and then almost like they just don't understand that them having a tantrum can potentially be a physical harm and danger. So simple logical games can kind of snap them out of it, get them to one, either chill out, or at least to like, oh, wait, what do you mean? Where's the car? And snap out of it.
And going off of that, like also like join in, like make it fun. Be like, oh my goodness, like, oh, I wonder what I can see next. Like get excited about it, because if you're excited, they get excited.
Yeah, you definitely feed off of your energy. So, if you're tense and like, oh, please stop crying, they're just gonna add on to it. Or if excitement, like Louisa said, they will easily follow and be like, oh, right, let's go look for that car.
Yeah, yes. Speaking of tantrums, one spectacular tantrum was in the airport in Charleston, and we're inside security, and we saw through the glasses a Minnie Mouse suitcase in the store outside through security. Big meltdown, and it took maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. She was just not wanting to like calm down or try to get the attention elsewhere. I mean, I was in a position with suitcases. I figured I'm not going to try to move out of sight. Maybe that should have done. But in cases of when it's a really, like maybe a strong-willed child where hey, look over there, all those things didn't work. Is it just, I guess, what I haven't tried is remove myself where she cannot see the thing anymore. But in those cases, once you're done accepting that people will judge and make comments that are none of their business, just let the energy bleed off. Eventually they're going to stop. Or are there some other things that we can try to, even with those who are more stronger willed, to get them to snap out of it or de-escalate?
Yeah, I mean those ones are hard, and I've been on that receiving end where it's like they're losing it, and it's hard to see because I know like as an adult, like you're like, oh, like I'm being judged, like my child's losing it right now, like everybody's looking at me. As much as you can, just be like, yeah, like it happens. I mean, one that I remember that happened was right when COVID shut down, and I was with like the kids, and they wanted to go to the zoo, and I was like, we can't go to the zoo. I want to go to here. We can't go there, and like everything. And then they just like lost it, and it was just one of those things where I just validated what he was feeling, and like I was just like, yeah, like I would be screaming too right now if I just can't, because I'm an adult. If with all of this that's going on. As much as you can, if there's like a specific trigger that's just going to keep needling them, you need to get them away from that trigger, because just doing that is going to help. One thing I found that is super helpful when it comes to that, because I know parents from experience that the second you like lift them up, it's almost like they lose it even more, because then you're picking them up and you're taking them away. Something that works for me is I will lower my voice so that they sort of have to stop screaming if they want to hear me. And you'll notice with kids, it happens all the time, even with adults. Like the second you start to whisper, they start to whisper, because it's just like, oh yeah, I guess we're whispering right now. And I'll be like 10 feet away and I'll be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't understand what's wrong. Can you come so I can help you? Like, and make it be about them. Make it be like, I want to help you. Like, but I don't know what you're saying because you're screaming. Can you come talk to me? Can we go find a seat so we can just talk about this? And maybe we can find a solution. And just like keeping a calm, low voice, and then sort of making them walk to you helps. And I've done it a lot with kids, because like, especially in our preschool room, the second they're like, you pick them up, it's like it just breaks out, because they're just like, then they've lost all control. So by keeping a lower, calm voice, and then like offering to help them, like make it about wanting to help them as much as possible. Like, I want to help, but I don't know what's wrong, is super helpful, especially as they get to that age where they're seeing stuff in stores and immediately wanting things. I find it super helpful. And then like having an honest conversation with them, like, I know you really want that. Like, there are things I really want to, but sometimes like we can't always get it just because like we don't have time, or like, things cost money. Like, being honest and explaining things is never really a bad thing, as long as it's like child friendly.
I will say I've had a tip from another parent that's like, let's take a picture of that and then we can save it as an idea. Because like if you're like, okay, yeah, let's take a picture of it so we remember for next time if we were gonna buy a suitcase, we know that you like a Minnie Mouse suitcase. And just like that simple, like taking a picture and like saying like, oh, I want to remember it for you for later on or something, so that it's not like, oh no, we're not gonna get it, and then you'll never see it or hear about it again. Take a picture of it and let's remember for your birthday or whatever holiday. Like we can revisit that picture and see if you really want it a couple months down the line. I've had a parent that did that, and they like had a photo album for families and friends to be like, well, what are their current interests right now? So we've had some family that do that.
It's wonderful. So such amazing resources, like Louisa, Carmen, so many insights. I mean, some things I've heard before that I forgot. So thanks for the reminder. Also some new tips that I'm going to use. So what I want to do now is just, in closing, we talked about many things, and some landed depending on your unique situations. I'd love to hear for everybody, either type it or unmute yourself. What is maybe one thing that has worked for you? And also maybe what is one thing that you're going to take away from today and that you're going to try? Remember, trying, that's all we can ask. And we learn from that, or we succeed. But it's about accepting imperfection. On this journey, it's about giving up the need to know everything, to be right, to look good. That time in the airport took me 5 minutes to get over it. After a while, I was like, okay, well, this is happening. They can say whatever they want, and things are better eventually. So what is one takeaway, maybe one insight, one experiment for each of you that you're going to do today? For me, I'm going to do the whispering. When she has this big thing, just say something that looks very interesting with a very expressive face, like I found the most awesome new bunny somewhere under the bed, but talk slowly. So we shall see. Perry said the timer is our friend. Okay, she's going to use deep breathing, asking for a space when it's not on the roller coaster, so that to get some reps in. So that's very cool. Okay, let's see.
I was going to say earlier that you could have saved me $500 on a sleep session I did with we did that visual schedule with Rome when he was having some sleep issues, and to get him bought into bedtime because we were starting to lose control of bedtime all of a sudden. And that visual schedule that he got to pick out when he brushed his teeth and how many books and where we sat with each book was such a game changer for getting him to sleep. And I don't know why I didn't think about leveraging that for the morning or with Oslo, but we will be crafting a new schedule for the boys when we get home. And Carmen, I do use the photo album with at least my older one. I'm sure Oslo will appreciate it in a little while from now, but Rome loves to take photos at stores and make his wish list, and he's got a running wish list. But yeah, Ian, my husband's really good at talking to Rome. I think he probably uses what you were describing, Louisa, of like, come talk to me, and that calm voice. I'm bad at it. I just want to like run to him and hold him and get in his face, which makes him more emotional and like amplifies the problem. So I will take your advice. That will be my takeaway, to approach it further away more calmly to get him to come talk to me. I like that. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Hannah added that she appreciates using the perspective of how, as an adult, how you would or wouldn't react in a certain situation. So it's good to have that mirror. Rowan, Robert, Silvana, anything that you'd like to add as we close?
Yeah, just real quick before anyone adds up, going off of with Hannah, I always like to remind parents as much as possible that kids are just their people. Like there is no difference between what we feel and what they feel. It's just difference of experience and different of strategies that we have to help our emotions and things. But beliefs, goals, dreams, all of that, like fears, they have all of those things already in them. So just remembering that they are literally people, even if they're just little. And so that I think it can be a really great takeaway to sort of have, because it sort of helps you frame your mind a little bit better when it comes to helping them, because it almost feels like then, instead of like, again, a child having a difficult behavior, it's like, oh, they're just going through stuff that I've gone through. Like, I understand. That has really been a great thing for me to have as like an insight for working with kids, is when I see them screaming and losing it over not getting their way, I'm like, yeah, I understand. Like, I don't like it when I don't get my way or I'm told no, like that upsets me too. And so by having that and then sharing that connection with them, like, yeah, I don't like it when I'm told that I can't do something or I have to follow a rule that I don't like, really helps build that connection with your child and helps you stay calmer a lot of times.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And also I agree with Robert, who talked about how the whole change the language around taking turns. So that's a good insight. So earlier I asked about one thing I'm gonna try. We're gonna try. I'm gonna add a second one, and that's the one. The complexity of like the whole. I loved how you put it. I think, Carmen, how if I put other person's need to share over mine, that cannot send maybe the right message there. So this is wonderful. And Silvana added, she remembers the mirror and the feed of the energy. I think that is so important, that I've taken a while to realize, but also realized by now. So this is great. So thank you all for being here. And remember, we have these amazing resources, Carmen, Luisa, experts with so much experience. My background is I'm a dad. I'm also, executive founder. Now I work as an executive coach. So for me, a lot of my work is balancing two things: is be a good parent and build stuff and lead. So any question you have about any of these areas, just send us a note, send a message, or bring your question to the next time so we can answer you live. Our aim is to help you be happy parents with happy kids so that everybody thrives. So that those happy moments when my daughter comes, gives me a big hug, and he tells me that I'm her favorite, those moments I want more, and a little bit less tantrums. But it's a journey that we are on together. So reach out, we are here.
And just tantrums, remember, it's a learning moment. Like, even though those are the hardest moments, they're the most important moments. Like, you feel the love, but like when you think I'm raising an adult, like I'm raising somebody to be a successful adult, those tantrums are not bad. They're good. They're times to learn for both you and for them, which is definitely what this world needs, is more people that know how to handle those big emotions.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we'll see you all next time. And in between, reach out to the team. They're here to support you, to your child. Talk to them at drop off. Reach out to have another quick chat. And we'll journey together on this journey of parenthood, which is so awesome.
Yeah, and so for everyone, thank you so much. We'll be sending out a recording and just like simple frameworks and insights, biggest takeaways from this call. If there are any questions or any like evolving questions that happen, again, please feel to reach out to us. We're resources for you. And we'll love to keep offering these parent talks. Thank you so much for everyone for your participation. I know taking time out of your day really shows like commitment and intentionality. So just being better parents overall. So, we're so wonderful to have Director Luisa and Carmen here to give you guys all these lessons. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. And enjoy the rest of the weekend. We do have the zoo coming up, so we'll also be sending reminders about that. Super excited for that. And we have a WhatsApp group going for that. So any questions, feel free to email me directly or anyone on the team.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.